We're about 3 to 4 days out from the start of the West Indies versus Ireland ODI Super League 3-game series, but we've done a video on that already. We've kind of done a video on who we thought might be selected for the ODI squad. You can go in our YouTube video archive and you'll be able to find that. But I had a few messages saying, but you haven't said anything about the T20 squad. And of course, on the 16th of January, 16th of January, West Indies will play Ireland in a one-off T20. And then, of course, England come to town a few weeks later to play us in a 5-match T20 series. Now, the T20 squad has been announced. So it was important that I did a reflection video looking at that T20 squad and what lessons we've got to learn from it and what questions need to be asked. You know the drill by now. Walk with me.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rule seems coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans. So we're back, we're live. This isn't a cuss out session. This is the first Rum Shot Diaries of the year, Rum Shot Diaries Season 2, Episode 1. What do we make of this T20 squad announced for the 6 T20s in combined against Ireland and England? And before I get into it, first things first, you know I'm starting to get better at this stuff. Let's go through the admin first things first. If you're somebody who's on Twitter or Instagram, you can follow us on the Caribbean Cricket Podcast at Carib Cricket. If you'd like to support us for as little as £2, £2, $2, to whatever your currency is, go to www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket and you can get us at us there. If you'd just like to find out more about the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, of course, go to www.caribbeancricketpodcast.com and all the info is there. We're trying to grow Caribbean Cricket Podcast even further in 2022. Jump on for the ride. We got bigger and better and greater things planned this year. But let's get into it. We talked about the T20 squad. Well, let's get into it. First things first, who's in the T20 squad? Look at this. New settings this year. So this is the squad announced for the T20s. Captain Kieran Pollard, back from injury. Vice captain, of course, Nicholas Pooran. Fabian Allen, not for Ireland, but will be in for the England 5 matches versus England, is back from injury. Darren Bravo is in for the 5 matches versus England, but is out of the matches versus Ireland, including the ODIs, due to personal reasons. Roston Chase, Sheldon Cottrell, Dominic Drakes, Shea Hope. Jason Holder is back after being rested in Pakistan. Akil Hussain, Brandon King, Carl Mayers, Rovman Powell, Romario Shepherd, Aldine Smith, Hayden Walsh Jr. And note the travelling reserves in case there is like a COVID outbreak or anything like that. Jaden Seals, Alzari Joseph, and Devon Thomas. Now, I'll call it straight off the bat. I think that's a fair squad. To me, when I was looking at it, I was like, well, are there any obvious names missing that I would have expected to be in that squad? Now, obviously they are, but we know the reasons why. Evan Lewis is out due to he's got COVID, so he's not being included. Obed McCoy. Well, it's a good question about Obed McCoy. Obed McCoy has a deal to go to the BPL. So is Obed McCoy out because of the Bangladesh Premier League, or is he out because of injury? Who knows? They said injury, but I know he's got a deal in the BPL. So who knows what the real story is? Obed McCoy. Shimron Hetmeyer has failed another fitness test. The last video I did, go back and look, released that a few days ago. He's out. Andre Russell, I've heard a lot of rumors about what's going on behind the scenes. I won't talk on it in this particular video, but I might even do a cuss out video on Andre Russell because there's a lot to be said about Dre Russ, but he's not included, and there was nothing included in the West Indies press release to explain why Andre Russell isn't in this squad. I know he's back in the Caribbean, but like I say, I've heard some stuff. I might save it for a cuss out video, but he's not included either. So generally speaking, there's somebody else out who for COVID who I can't remember right now off the top of my head. But generally speaking, the squad is what you would expect. I don't think there are any big talking points in terms of why is that person in the squad. I know a couple of you listening will be like, but how comes Darren Bravo's in there? Darren Bravo's got a white ball contract. Darren Bravo in his last T20, Darren Bravo's only played 2 T20s since 2019. In his last T20, which was the game against Pakistan in the third T20, he scored 34 not out of 29 balls. So I'm not here for the why is Darren Bravo in the team conversation. To me, that just makes sense. He was part of the World Cup squad. He was a travelling reserve. He's then gone to Pakistan. He's then made a score in Pakistan. So why would he not? Why would you suddenly drop him out of the squad? That don't make any sense to me. So everybody in this squad, I generally speaking have no issues with. So this video isn't to dissect the squad and go, why is that person there? Why is this person there? And so on and so forth. It's more to look at what are the strengths and the weaknesses, so to speak, of this West Indies T20 squad. And also to give you who I would play in, who I think is the ideal starting 11 in a T20 versus England. The only reason I'm not saying Ireland is because I know that Fabian and Darren aren't in the squad for the Ireland game. So I'm going to use the first, everything I say here is technically speaking with the first England game in mind in terms of looking at what is the strongest 11 in this particular setup. But there's some key questions to ask as well. So before I give you my 11, I think there's some key things you have to go through. So first things first, let's just go back to Pakistan. Lost 3-0. Obviously, I think that was expected. But what do we learn from the Pakistan defeats? Remember, we've dropped a video on this already, so you can go back and watch it. But I think the main things that we learned out of that Pakistan defeat were that we were giving you for chance. So Dominic Drakes was in. Romario Shepherd was in. He's not young, but you know what I mean, young in international experience. Old Dean Smith was in. And those were like the three kind of headline names in terms of giving young players a chance. Gudakesh Multi got a game as well. So we went for a younger side. A lot of the veterans have gone. Gale's gone. Lendl Simmons has gone. Dwayne Bravo's gone. So a lot of the veterans have gone now. Okay, so the obvious scapegoats to cuss out, they're gone. So that the youth had come through in Pakistan. Okay, cool. We saw with the batting display that there is some potential with the bat. Nicholas raised his hands in 1 or 2 innings. Brandon King raised his hands in a couple of innings. Shea Hope raised his hands in 1 inning. Romario Shepherd raised his hands in an inning. So we saw some potential with the bat from a few players. And that we learned that from Pakistan. We saw a bit more urgency in the field and running between the wickets in Pakistan. Those are the positives I think we saw. There are a few things that I was concerned about coming out of Pakistan. Yes, young players, and I'm all for it, and I'm all for a younger, more vibrant team. Does that mean we're guaranteed immediate success? No, but I think reading the mood of the Caribbean, that's what people wanted to see. But I am just slightly concerned about this rhetoric of we want to see the players running more twos and being a bit sharper between the wickets, because I still maintain that generally speaking in T20 cricket, it is still about boundary percentage. So I'm just a tad concerned about a lot of this chat, which seems to suggest that running between wickets is what West Indies need to change. Let's just make sure that if we're gonna have that chat, that we have a healthy balance of the two. Hitting sixes and hitting fours is still crucial in T20 cricket. Let's not go too far the other side and not stay true to our DNA. So I just think that I was worried about some of the chat coming out of Pakistan that we were going to go a bit far, move a bit further away from our actual DNA. And the other thing that concerned me a bit in Pakistan was actually the bowling. As much as people wanted to talk about Drake's is in, Oldeen's in, Romario Shepherd's in, etc., there was still some concern with our ability to restrict Pakistan to low totals. Yes, Pakistan are an exceptional T20 side, but a lot of the bowlers caught some licks in Pakistan. So there was a few concerns there for me with the bowling. It's going to be interesting to see how they go versus Ireland and how they go, obviously, versus England as well. So that's what we learned coming out of Pakistan. And then looking at this squad, there were just a few issues. When I looked at the squad, there were like I say, I've got no particular concern with who's been selected. It's just more about concerns about the makeup for the final 11 and just some questions I think we need to ask ourselves and that we need to look for answers for by the time the 5 match series is concluded with England. Have these particular questions been answered? So here's some questions I'm just going to throw out there that I think we need to see answered by the end of the England series. So in this squad, let's start here. Random place to start, but it's just because it's the first thing I see. Rovman Powell's in the squad and Carl Mayers is in the squad. I don't have. I'll give. Like I said, I'm going to give you my 11 near the end of this video. But I don't have either Rovman or Carl Mayers in my side. And if I like, you can see on the screen, but where does Rovman fit in all of this? And if Rovman does fit in, obviously Rovman's been in good form in the T10s and then the few games he had in the Lanka Premier League. If Rovman does fit in this side, how does Carl Mayers fit in this side? So I actually personally believe that Rovman Powell and Carl Mayers are in a direct competition with one another. I'm not convinced that the two of them can both fit in the West Indies 11 from this selected squad. I'm not even convinced one of them fits in the 11. So the first big issue I've got and what I want to see answered by the end of the England series is what was the role for either player? Did they ever get a game? Obviously, there'll be rotation, but what is the role of a Rovman Powell and what is the role of a Carl Mayers in this England side? Rovman obviously is a bit like a Fabian Allen. You want him to come in and be a bit of a finisher, but is there a spot for him in this particular team? Carl Mayers, I actually think if he's going to be used, he should be used as an opener, but he's not going to open in this side because you have to assume it's going to be Shea Hope and Brandon King. So what is Carl Mayer's role in this side? So that's one of the question marks I've got about this squad selection. The next question, Oldine and Romario Shepherd. Everyone called for them. Not everyone. A lot of people called for them after CPL. As it was, Oldine had failed a fitness test anyways, and Romario didn't get in, and a lot of people thought he should have done because he came second in the wicket takers charts in CPL. My first question on the screen says, can Oldine and Romario fit in the same side? They played the 3 games in Pakistan, but is that the right way forward? And again, I guess a lot of these questions I'm posing to whoever's watching it, and obviously get in the comments below on YouTube or Instagram when you're responding to this video, or Facebook, whatever it might be. Do you think these two can play in the same side? And if you do, who's missing out? Because I actually think they're the same player. I'm not saying they're the same bowler per se in terms of skill set, but they're actually the same player, a lower order all-rounder, powerful hitters. We've seen what they can both do with the bat lower down the order, but they're in the side to bowl, which is why my second question says, who's the better strike bowler? Because at the end of the day, the West Indies, one of the biggest West Indies issues in the World Cup that wasn't spoken about enough was that we weren't penetrative with the ball. Forget whether Chris Gale failed or whether Lendl Simmons failed and all that. Yes, the batting was subpar, but it wasn't as subpar as the bowling. We weren't penetrative with the ball across the really and truly in the World Cup. Again, to the people listening, do you think Oldine and Romario Shepherd are penetrative with the ball? We didn't see much of that in Pakistan. It's early days yet, though. I'm not saying I'm not writing them off. I'm just saying that can we put both of them in the side? I'm not fully convinced we can. I think they should probably be playing or fighting for the same spot. And if they are going to be fighting for the same spot, who's the better strike bowler out of the two? And look at my third question. Who has the better secondary skill? Now, when I say secondary skill, I don't mean the batting. When I say secondary skill, I mean which of those two bowlers has the better variation? Or which of those two bowlers can you bring back at different spots in the innings? Romario can definitely bowl in the power play. Romario has a Yorker, which he's trying to develop, and maybe a slower ball, which suggests that Romario can come back at the death. Oldine obviously hits hard lengths. So when I say who's a better strike bowler, who do you trust to get more wickets? Who do you trust to have a better variety to their bowling, whereby if they're going for licks, they can do something to avoid going for licks? Like I say, and this all comes back to this idea for me that are they fighting for the same spot? Again, speaking to those watching, would you have both of them in the same team, or do you think, like me, that they should be fighting for the same spot? And again, by the end of the Ireland game and the 5 England games, will we have an answer to that question? I am not convinced when you look at that squad that you can put Oldine and Romario in. One of the big reasons why is because Fabian Allen is now back and Jason Holder is now back. I don't see how you fit both Oldine and Romario in as well. But again, I'm sure some will have both of them in their team. Next, Walsh Jr. should have been in the ODI side. Okay. Hayden's ODI record in 2021 was actually fine. He bowled, if you look at his record for 2021, he bowled really well. When I saw the ODI squad announced, I was shocked that Hayden Walsh wasn't in it. And Gudakesh got in the ODI squad, Hayden Walsh got in the T20 squad, and you would have thought that should have been the other way round. Hayden is a better ODI bowler, and Gudakesh was exceptional in CPL. But anyways, Hayden's in the T20s. Having made the decision to not include Hayden Walsh in the ODIs, surely he has to play in the T20s, because why have we put him in the T20 squad then? I think, personally, that we have really messed Hayden about here. I'm not saying that Hayden's not to blame himself. He's been really up and down with his lengths. He seems to be a confidence bowler. When Hayden's low on confidence, it's all over the place. You don't know what you're going to get from him. But when he's on top of his game, as we saw against Australia, for example, in the T20 series in the summer, he can be a very, very effective bowler. Having decided not to put him in the ODI squad, surely he has to play in these T20 matches. And if he's not, why is he there? What? And the wider question from this is, what is the plan with Hayden Walsh? I just feel that we messed this guy about. Are we using him as a strike bowler in ODI cricket? Are we using him as a strike bowler in T20s? What are we using Hayden Walsh for? Or is it just that he's the best leg spinner in the Caribbean, as we've identified, and therefore we're just carrying him because he is, but we don't really know what we're going to do with him? I have so many question marks about how we use Hayden Walsh Jr. So I would expect to see him play a lot. But again, if Hayden gets in the team, who's getting left out then? So there's a question marks about Hayden Walsh. And actually that kind of segues nicely into this next question. Does Roston Chase or Darren Bravo even get in this side? And this goes, and the reason why it segues into or links to the Hayden Walsh question is, if Hayden Walsh gets in, why are you putting Roston Chase in the team then? And let me explain why I'm saying that. Because Akil Hussain definitely plays. Fabian Allen definitely plays. Okay, that's already 2 spinners. Surely you don't also play Hayden Walsh Jr. and Roston Chase as well. Surely you wouldn't have 4 spinners. You only would if the pitch dictates that. So, linking to the previous question, if Hayden Walsh Jr. gets in to the team, Roston Chase for me can't get into the team. I think you're overkilling it then with the spinners. So I'm not, it's not as clear cut for me if Roston Chase gets in this side. And then similarly, say Hayden Walsh does get in, and therefore you feel like you don't really need to use Roston Chase off spin, then the question is, well, who's the better batsman out of Roston Chase and Darren Bravo in the T20 context? So again, I feel like Chase and Bravo, from a batting perspective, are fighting for the same position. Everyone spoke about, oh, we need a Marlon Zamwells, we need a consolidator in the team, we need somebody to anchor the innings. Well, the only 2 batsmen in the team that fit that role are Roston Chase and Darren Bravo. So for me, it's one or the other. The only thing working against Chase in this scenario is, what are we doing with the other spinners? If they all get in, there is no point in playing Roston Chase, as far as I'm concerned. If Walsh Jr. isn't getting in as the right-handed leg spinner, then Chase has to get in, you'd think, for his off spin, and which means then Bravo doesn't get in. So there's question marks about Chase and Bravo. Who gets in? Does either of them? Surely one of them gets in this anchor role, but surely it's between the 2 of them. It's one or the other to get into this side. I don't think you get both in the side. And then another issue I kind of picked out from this squad, Sheldon Cottrell. Again, similar to Hayden Walsh Jr., should Sheldon Cottrell have been in the ODI side? He was in the ODI side for most of 2021, certainly in terms of the series versus Australia. And all of a sudden now he's out of the ODI side, which I expected him to be. And I expected him to be in the squad. He's not in it. Instead, he's in the T20. And the reason why I think Sheldon is in the T20 squad is because, again, it goes back to who is our strike bowler. And I wonder if they've got Sheldon in there. Remember, Obed McCoy's not about. So Sheldon is your, obviously Dominic Drakes is in there, but I think Sheldon is kind of there as your left arm fast strike bowler. We know that in the power play, Sheldon Cottrell can be very, very effective. So there's just questions that I've got about Sheldon. Is he back in this squad because they have identified him as you're going to be our strike bowler in the power play? Remember, West Indies had an issue with penetrative strike bowlers in the World Cup. So is Sheldon back in because they're going to go back to him as the option in the kind of as the power play strike bowler option to get early wickets? And to give him his due, Sheldon tends to be quite good at that. Not so happy with what he does outside of the power play, but he can be very effective inside the power play if he's fit and if he's on form. But again, this then links back to previous questions. If Sheldon Cottrell gets in, what are you doing with Dean Smith and Romario Shepherd? Because surely they can't both get in if Sheldon Cottrell gets in. So like I say, I mean, those are the kind of 5 major questions. When I looked at the squad and I kind of sussed it out and I analysed it, those were the 5 major questions that came into my head, or 5 major issues. No issue at all with the wider squad being named. But once I looked at the squad, I thought, well, what's the question marks here? And those are the 5 big question marks I had. If I was going to just raise a 6th, I would just say that I was surprised to see Jayden Seales in the ODI squad and not in the T20 initial squad. Obviously, he's only there as a travelling reserve. We've all seen that he was killing it up in the Lanka Premier League. We all know that West Indies are struggling for strike bowlers. I'm surprised that Jayden didn't get into the T20 squad outright. I'm glad to see Alzari Joseph's name there, because if you go back to the video we did pre-Ireland series, I spoke about Alzari Joseph maybe getting a call up into the T20 squad and so on and so forth. I would like to see in due course Jayden Seales or Alzari Joseph, or maybe get into the T20 squad, because again, I think there are just some issues about, do we lack some strike bowlers in this variety in this format of the game? Remember, though, that Alzari Joseph also has a Bangladesh Premier League deal. So again, there's a question mark about what's happening with Alzari Joseph in general. But we'll do a video touching on that at some later point. So then to the big question. That I raised at the start, where I said, well, I've already picked my team. I think I've got an idea of what my 11 would be. By all means, comment below and say you don't agree with the 11. You don't think it should be this. You don't think it should be that. You think this player should be out. I am not saying that this is a definitive 11. I'm not saying that it must be this. Just when I initially picked my team, this is what I picked. So prepare for the cuss out. My 11 to play the first game versus England. Remember, Fabian Allen and Darren Bravo are not available for the Ireland game, so I'm looking at the England game instead. Opening King and Hope. The only reason I've put brackets Lewis is because obviously just reminding you all that whenever Lewis is back, he comes straight into the team. But for the England series, King and Hope. Number 3, Pooran. Number 4, Chase or Bravo, similar to what I just spoke about earlier on. One of them is going to be the anchor player. I should have put in brackets next to number 4. When he's finally passed his fitness test and is taking his career seriously, Shimron Hetmyer would go at number 4. So I just want to remind people that if Hetmyer was available, he would come straight into that team. 5, Pollard. 6, Holder. Remember, Holder's back now. So 6 would be Holder. Oh, I better pause there. If Rovman was to come into the team, someone out of 6, 7, or 8 has to be dropped for me. I'm just saying that, and I just don't see that happening, which is why I don't have Rovman in my team. But anyway, 6, Holder. 7, Allen. 8, Dean or Romario. Again, I'm not convinced you have both of them in the team. There is a way to do it, which would mean dropping Sheldon Cottrell or Hayden Walsh Jr., but at this moment in time, I'm saying Dean or Romario. I'm well aware that most of you will say play both of them. That's fine. I'm just saying that I think it might be a toss-up between the two of them. 9, Akil, that's a lock-in. And then 10 and 11, well, this is open for debate. I've put Hayden Walsh Jr. question mark because remember what I said. If you want the leg spin, then for me, Chase drops out. If you want Chase's off spin, then for me, Hayden Walsh Jr. drops out. And then that's when you probably play Oldine and Romario. Okay, so I hope you understand why I've got Hayden Walsh Jr. as a question mark there, because it all depends on what they're actually doing with Hayden Walsh Jr. And then 11, I have Sheldon Cottrell. And it goes back to the question I raised when I raised him as an issue. I think Sheldon Cottrell is in this squad because they have identified that they need a strike bowler in the power play. Versus Pakistan, who was the most effective strike bowler in the power play? Probably Akil Hussain, but they obviously want a fast bowler who is penetrative in the power play. So they've gone back to Sheldon Cottrell. I expect Sheldon Cottrell to start. But again, I would understand if Sheldon doesn't play, and that's how you get both Oldine and Romario in the team. But like I say, I just have question marks about should they both be in the side or not. So that's the side that I've got. That's the side I've got. Oh, last thing I meant to say, and this is controversial. Andre Russell probably expects to walk into this side. And like I said, I'm going to do a cuss out video some point in the near future concerning Dre Russ. But Andre Russell would expect himself to walk into this side. So I'm just going to say the following, and then I'm going to duck out. Andre Russell is better than both Oldine Smith and Romario Shepherd. A lot of people are going to hear that comment and go, you're talking absolute nonsense. Of course he's not. Yes, he is. Andre Russell is better with the ball at this moment in time. I'm not saying he's always going to be. If Oldine Smith's career trajectory follows how it's currently going, he will surpass Andre Russell with the ball sooner rather than later. But right now, if I gave you Oldine Smith, Romario Shepherd, or Andre Russell and said, I need you to defend 12, who would you trust to defend the 12? I'm going with Andre Russell. If you gave one of those three the ball in the power play and said, boy, control things in the power play, who you giving the ball to? You're probably still going to Andre Russell. Okay. So a fit Andre Russell who mentally wants to play for the West Indies, which is the big issue and why I'm going to do the cuss out, probably actually is above both Oldine Smith and Romario Shepherd. So if Russell ever came back, one of those two can't get anywhere near the starting 11 for certain. And remember, Andre's obviously better with the bat than both of them as well. Yes, Romario's batting has come on massively. Yes, Oldine can hit a big six. I'm not doubting that. But currently, whether people want to hear it or not, Andre Russell is still considered a better player than Oldine Smith and Romario Shepherd. Oldine and Romario would probably admit that as well, in fairness. So just bear in mind that Andre Russell still, even with his lax attitude to wanting to play for the West Indies, still probably walks into the West Indies T20 side. So just bear that in mind. But he's not available for this England and Ireland series, or hasn't been picked, I should say. So that's moot right now, but it's just something for people to think about in the back of their minds. But there you have it, people. I've given you the squad. I've given you some stuff to think about. I'm not saying you have to agree. By all means, get in the comments below. Tell me what you think. Do you think that's the likely starting 11 versus England? Remember, Allen won't be available for Ireland. Bravo won't be available for Ireland. So, of course, the team will change slightly for the Ireland game. But hit me up in the comments. I've been Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. This has been the Rum Shot Diaries Season 2, Episode 1. Press the like, press the subscribe, share with anybody who you think needs to hear it. And that has been the Rum Shot Diaries. Thank you and good night.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.